So let's pray. God, I thank you so much for today. Thank you for all the people that are gathering here to learn about online church and learn how to engage their local community using digital tools. I want to thank you, God, for still continue to work. No matter what happens, God, your kingdom will continue to expand. Even as things get shut down, your church never shuts down. So when people pull back, the church moves in, and we want to figure out how to do that with digital tools. And I pray for this conversation in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. So my name is Jay Kranda. I am the online pastor at Saddleback Church. And then I have with me, Mike, why don't you introduce yourself?
How you doing, everyone? I'm Mike, and I am the online campus pastor at the Rock Church in San Diego. I'm happy to be here with y'all.
And then Tommy.
Hi, I'm Tommy Prater. I'm with Church on the Rock, the online director here. We're right outside St. Louis, Missouri.
Yeah, and we are gathering online like everybody has to right now. And so coming from Southern California all the way on the other end, oh, not the other end of the country, but partially 70% on the other end of the country. We're meeting together, and like many of you, we've kind of been thrown into this, frantic mode of what does it look like to do online church? What does it look like to gather people when you are told you can't gather? And I bet like many of you, and I'm seeing it in the chat, are just trying to figure it out. And so the conversation we're going to have is we're going to be very practical, and we're going to think about churches of all sizes, not just large churches. We're going to think about small churches and medium churches. And so to kind of start this conversation off, I want to kind of talk about, should a church right now be live streaming, or should we be just uploading stuff to on demand? What is the value? So I think to kind of start that off, obviously there's different platforms like Facebook and YouTube, but why go live? What's the advantage of that? Mike, why don't you just kind of kick it off? What does that kind of look like, and why do that?
Yeah, definitely. I would say that live streaming in general just gets a different level of engagement. And I think as we're looking at this time where the big buzzword is social distancing, we're trying to figure out a way to draw the church in and have real engagement, real hands-on. This is a time where people are going to feel more disconnected personally than ever. So how do we draw them in and feel more connected than ever? A really good way to do that is to have engagement that's happening over text in the comments. Not to get overly biblical on you guys, but I was just thinking about when Paul was in prison, he's like, I long to be with you. I wish I could be there. I wish I could actually lay hands on you and spend time with you, but I have to write to you because I'm in chains right now. And I don't think anybody discounts the effectiveness of what he wrote. So I think, just having that text conversation, having that live engagement is going to be a really, really powerful tool moving forward.
And right, so just so practically, how do you guys push out your services? What platforms are you pushing out to right now? And then we'll jump to Tommy.
So currently we're pushing out to 3 different platforms. We're on the Church Online platform. And then we're also which is, linked to our website. And then we're pushing out to Facebook Live, and we're pushing out to YouTube Live. YouTube Live is a newer reach. Okay. We've been doing YouTube for a long time, uploading videos and uploading sermons, but we just went live about a month ago.
Yeah. So the Church Online platform, if your church hasn't considered this, it's a free platform, costs no money. It's a resource a bunch of churches have put together. It allows you to have a live experience like chat and notes, and it has a bunch of tools. So go to the churchonlineplatform.com. It's a free thing. It's amazing. I was just reading the Church Online team sent out an email that they had over 15,000 salvations because all these churches had turned it on over a weekend. And it's a really amazing thing. And then to stream to Facebook and YouTube, those are things you could do just from your phone. But if you want to do both simultaneously, it takes some software. So we're going to talk about that later. There's a free software called OBS. And Mike was reminding me, what does that stand for again?
I believe it's online broadcasting software.
Oh, you're a little bit more doubtful when we're recording. You're a little confident when we.
I messed around with Twitch for just like a few minutes.
Oh, okay.
To play around with it, so I had to learn it a little bit.
So there's 2 types of software. There's OBS, which is like a free thing, and that allows you to import like a camera, and then you could broadcast it. It's free. If you wanted to Wirecast is the more it's like expensive. It costs money, but it allows you to do some different things. But we'll talk about that more later in this kind of show. Tommy, talk a little bit about what you guys are doing. Are you guys doing live, on demand, and then what platforms are you going out to?
So we're going out live for our weekend experiences, gatherings. It's more the key word we're saying now is gathering. We're on Church Online platform, which is, like Mike said, linked to our website. We're on Facebook Live and YouTube Live. We do on demand. We take, the weekend message, and after all of our gatherings on Sunday, we will post that message back out there. So it's available for that following week up until Friday night, Saturday morning. Kind of like Mike, the big live experience, you get a lot more engagement. When you're telling everybody to join at a certain time, I agree 100%. This whole social distancing thing, one of the things we've been saying around here is, yes, isolation is good in the physical realm right now, but in the spiritual realm, it's not, spiritually, it's not good to isolate. So that way, we engage in all the chats, the chat through Church Online platform, the chat or the comment section in Facebook Live, comments in YouTube. We have somebody that has basically taken notes for the service so that our team is posting those notes in all three mediums. Basically as the service is going, we're making sure that we post in the comment section, not just the notes, like in Church Online platform, you can preload notes, but we actually post those points, the scriptures, to kind of keep the topic and the thread going, in the chat, so that if somebody missed it, hey, I missed what that scripture was. Our team's posting it. It creates more conversation, in there. Every church is different, but we have people that like to say amen.
Yeah.
So it's really neat seeing them in the chat room. Amen. Oh, praise God, or something, they're just agreeing with, or they'll say, wow, that song really just ministered to me. And then somebody else will chime in, but it creates that connection. And even before we had to go fully online, we have people that will share, oh yeah, we attend the 11 o'clock service and we go to church with so-and-so. Well, these people don't live in the same states, right? So now we're broadening that, even though we can't leave our house or whatever, that it's, we're going to church together. We know who's online with each other. And we're using real names. At least that's something we've encouraged our staff now, especially now that we're fully online, is don't put a nickname in there, put your real name. So that way, you know who you're chatting with. You know who you're engaging with. Sorry, I don't know if I jumped the gun on that.
No. This is really good. So just like some of you guys might be new to this. And so I think on both the Church Online platform and on Facebook, what you can do is you can be given an admin access on Facebook. And so like, for example, if you log in, they might see your church name. But what I love what Tommy's saying there is have your staff show up in the chat on Facebook or in YouTube and have them use their real account, because they'll be able to see you join in. On the Church Online platform, you can give yourself a nickname, but use your real name. So your members start seeing your staff, your volunteers, your core team in the chat. They should go, oh, look, that's Pastor Jay, or that's Sarah. I know her. A great role to consider launching right now with your online experience is a digital greeter. You can call them a digital greeter. You can call them a chat host, but get people that are friendly, get them online. You do not want your chat host to be somebody that's not friendly. Okay. And usually they're going to fit a lot of the type of, traits. If you have a greeter already, they need to be a little bit more technical. And so I would think about launching that type of role. Tommy, you guys obviously have a little bit of a setup. Are you guys using like a specific platform right now to kind of push everything out? I was just kind of curious.
Yeah, so we're using the product that we're using, or service that we're using, is High Vision, which basically that's our video delivery service. That's who we're using for video delivery. What is nice for us is when we push to them, the encoder that we use with them also will push to YouTube and Facebook simultaneously. So I don't have to set up anything else other than I just got to hit start on both our feeds.
Yeah. So, and I know, don't worry about the language. If you're watching this and you're like, what does that mean? What is an encoder? Essentially, there's going to be two types of experiences. You're either going to just broadcast right from your living room. And I would say that there's nothing bad about that. People love organic, natural, selfie type of videos. And my recommendation, if you're going to just go live, like at Sunday at 11 or 9 a.m. from your living room, from your phone, just make sure you get like a tripod for your phone so it's stable. And so you could preach. There's that very elementary type of experience, which is very powerful. And communicate to your church. By the way, we're going to have church every week at 9 a.m. And I do think that there's value to have a singular type of experience. I think if you're broadcasting from your phone, you're going to have to pick either Facebook or YouTube. You're not going to be able to simultaneously broadcast. So pick one and pick the platform that makes sense for your church. Don't pick the platform that makes sense for you. Pick the one, okay, you know what? I can get most of my members there. But once you want to have a more robust experience, this is where you're going to use an OBS or a Wirecast or a software provided by your streaming provider. And there are many streaming providers out there. High Vision's one, Stream Monkey's another one. There are literally hundreds of these. And so you most likely have one within your network, your denomination, or maybe you might have somebody within your church that does this already. There's a lot of ways to execute streaming, and then you just figure out the way to kind of connect the stream. And so, I think that there is value, just kind of summarize this, there's value to go live once a week because you aggregate everybody together and you have corporate worship online. And then afterwards, you make the video available afterwards. So if people want to watch it later, maybe they're traveling, maybe they're not traveling right now, or maybe they have kids and it doesn't make sense, they can watch it later. I know our church is talking about encouraging families and small groups to watch together. Obviously, we're trying to be aware of the size, but like if you have a group of 10 in your home, you might not log in right at 11 or right at 9. You might want to be a couple minutes delayed. So this is where on-demand is valuable. So both experiences are good, but I would definitely try to have a Facebook Live, either from your camera as a pastor or explore other software. If you're going to explore other software, just be aware. I started seeing questions about splitters and different things. I definitely be aware of your audio that you put online, because sometimes the mix that you have for inside your worship center or your building is different online. And this is where you want to test. A great thing I want to encourage you on, you can go live on Facebook and YouTube and unlist or make the feed private. So I would say if you're going to test this out on Sunday morning, this next week, if you're going to go live Sunday morning, do a test stream with the whole setup on Thursday and make it private and unlist it and test it out, see how it works. Don't make Sunday morning your first time you do it, okay? Funny thing is, I was trying to go live on Facebook for this software with the tool we're using with Zoom, and it didn't work. And I kind of broke that rule. I did not test it. And that happens. And then platforms, Facebook, YouTube, and the church online platforms are your primary type of tools. And all of them are really good platforms for different reasons. Beginner, Facebook. YouTube and Facebook at the same time is next level. And then the church online platform if you want a web experience. Next, let's talk about what does an online service look different than in person. Mike, is there anything that is different is there anything you guys are doing differently since you're streaming only than your physical service?
Yeah, so I mean that question is different in quarantine reality versus the question if you asked me a month ago. There are differences between what we do online and what we do physically just in general, but as of what we're going to do for the coming weeks, we're going to have a little bit of a different experience in the sense that we're really trying to think of who our congregation is and where they currently are while they're attending the service now. It used to be that we were preaching to a room of people in a sanctuary. Now we're going to be preaching to a family in a living room as our primary audience. So what we're going to try to do is really draw them in and make the service more intimate. I think a lot of churches scrambled last Sunday and said, how are we going to pull this Sunday off online only? And most of us did stuff just from the stage, did our standard Sunday. We recorded it and pumped that out. But I think a really cool, engaging experience is to now think, how do I want to really draw people from their living rooms into this experience? And so we're going to have go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I love this idea. Like,
Yeah.
people are watching in their living room. So we want to replicate that. So like the value add is you just want to make it more natural and feel more church in their home type of thing.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is people are in their living rooms having an engaging time, similar to like the book of Acts. They're home to home. Now we're back into the Acts church. It's just fantastic to see. But now we can actually draw them in and say, here's what a living room church service looks like. And we're going to actually record in that living room feel with our pastor preaching, with a group of us sitting together. Worship can be acoustic, sitting around a circle, probably 10 people or less in that circle, making sure that we're abiding by some of those rules, a little bit of distancing as well, but really just saying, hey, if we're abiding by all these rules, what does a church service look like? How can you do church with your family? I think we're going to get a lot more practical in the coming weeks and saying, hey, if you don't have the church there every Sunday to feed you, how are you going to feed yourselves in your homes as a family together? So that's really what we're trying to engage them with.
Yeah. And then are you guys doing like, is essentially your pastor like telling people to engage in the chat? What is that? Is there anything you're doing special there? I'm just kind of curious.
Well,
I'm thinking out loud here.
No, I think, obviously as the online pastor, I actually host the service every Sunday, at least for the past 2 years I have been. So now our senior pastor's hosting. So I'm having to translate what it looks like to talk to an online congregation. So there's a lot of things where he's saying, hey, you know what? Somebody wants to pray with you. Click the request prayer button, and we have chat hosts that would love to speak with you, hear your story, and to pray with you intimately. So everything needs to be translated. So it's literally like I'm translating our senior pastor's language into the language on our platform weekly, so that I can be encouraging him to speak the right language to them. But yeah, it's constant engagement. I'm saying, hey, there's somebody there who wants to pray with you. And I'm not trying to sell the church online platform. Once again, it's free, but there's so many engagement tools that are there. The YouVersion Bible app, our notes are uploaded. The chat is there. Private one-on-one chat is there. I mean, literally it's your welcome team. It's your prayer team. It's every team kind of put together online. So yeah, that's what we're trying to translate that.
Yeah, that request prayer is a feature on the Church Online platform. And the Church Online platform has a robust like volunteer backend that allows you to do a bunch of stuff. I know, Tommy, what's interesting, I know this about your church. So there's a lot of churches around the world that are scrambling not to host physical church, but there are churches in Missouri and so forth that get canceled often throughout the year because of weather. So you guys, this isn't like a brand new thing. You guys have already walked through this a couple of times, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, we've, for us, we have to have a plan that if we get snowed out, I can't make it, what are we going to do? Pre-record the service, in light of there might not be a service physically. We stream online. But when we do that, kind of like what Mike was saying, like what you're saying, Jay, is we address online. We make sure that we're not talking about something in the in the auditorium where there's nobody sitting there like, oh, well, hey, pick out this card and do this. And we canned all that, because there's no reason to pick a card out of the back of the seat. It's, hey, there's a response card on your screen. There's a button on your screen. There's a prayer request option on your screen. Oh, are you not in the chat? You need to stop right now. Go get in the chat so you can engage with us. Why is it good to engage? Well, because you don't want to be alone. We need to grow spiritually. We need, it takes the greatest things in life. It's not things, it's relationships. We're constantly using that language of engagement so that gathering, no matter where you're at, we're still gathering, even though it's online. So we change the language of don't pick out the response card in the seat. Hey, there's a button on your screen. There's a link. The team's throwing it in the chat room in the comment section. I don't know. Is that?
I love that. No, I love that. And I think and encourage people like we've been talking about. I love what the Rock's doing with talking about gathering and doing church in your home. And I've seen stuff that Church on the Rock has done as well, that it's about encouraging people online to gather in a large capacity, but then encourage them in their homes to gather in small ways. And something that you could do as a pastor, if you're just Facebook Living from your home and you got like a tripod set up on your phone, have your family or have a couple people over and sit on the couch with you. I know there's a Westside Family Church I know has done this, where they've done church in the home, and they just had a couch set up, and they had all their pastors sitting on a couch. And it was a simple setup, but it was very powerful because it communicated what church, like Mike, you were talking about. It's acts. We're meeting together. So replicate what you're doing or what you're encouraging your people to do. And if you show that, it's kind of like practice what you preach. People do what you do. And so show that in your experience, and be, make it a very natural and, organic and simple. It doesn't need to be this robust thing. The other thing, if you're doing something in your worship center or in your building, consider, doing a single shot. So instead of make sure you're not showing a bunch of people that are empty in a worship center, make sure you have a camera that's tight. I think some of those things, as you kind of have more robust options, you need to make sure stuff is simple. I want to jump to kind of thinking through, what are you measuring for success for online, and thinking about what are metrics. So I know a bunch of people this weekend streamed services or did something, and now they're being asked, how do we know it's working? So I'm curious, Mike, what are you, what does it actually look like? What are you measuring? So on Facebook, you have Facebook reach, you have engagement, you can look at retention. On YouTube, you can look at impressions, or sessions, or what are you guys measuring right now? What are metrics you're looking at to know what's working?
Well, there's some concrete metrics that you can look at, and then there's some other ones that are going to just kind of give you an idea. And what I would say, as far as attendance is concerned, there's a lot of churches that are super big and focused on attendance. Attendance is going to be different for every online church. If some online church says, hey, we have 80,000 people that are on, attend online, that might be a view metric. That might be a 10-second view metric. It might be a 30-minute view metric. Every church online kind of measures differently. What I would say is baseline it, and then use that same metric moving forward. Agree with your leadership, what metric you're going to use, and move forward. I'm getting some head nods. That's fantastic. I just don't like to compare my attendance with the attendance of other churches unless we baseline what those are. So that's attendance. But I would say really big ones are, have some sort of follow-up form, right? Whatever that looks like. And I know, Jay, you helped us out a lot when we first launched, as far as having one form that kind of funnels everything through. So whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, online platform, you're driving them towards one form, whether that's a type form or a woofu or whatever that form is that you're using. Use the same form and have a bunch of check boxes on it so you can funnel people different places. But what we do is we measure engagement based on how many forms are filled out. Then we know, did people make a decision for Christ? Did people rededicate their lives to Christ? Do people just need prayer or want information about how to get connected into next steps in ministry? We have all that information, but I think that's a huge, huge metric, is to say, how many next steps forms did we get? And then the last metric you're going to obviously be able to see is giving. I mean, that's a huge one right now, as churches are saying, man, we're not getting physical money in right now. And I know that's a weird thing to talk about, but it's a reality, that giving is a metric that's going to show you a level of engagement as well. So I would say the biggest ones are giving, not giving. I don't want to order them, obviously not in this order. I would say it's forms, like the next steps forms, because that shows engagement, giving, and then baseline your attendance.
Yeah. And for sure, I would say, just generally speaking, looking at the different metrics, I love what you said. Consistency is so important, because what you want to know is a trend. Are you going up or are you going down? So if you look at a Facebook reach number, start there. If you're looking at views, go there. Like at Saddleback, we look at a 30-minute retention number, which you can get on Facebook and YouTube. You can go into audience retention on both of those platforms. And I just want to let you know, it's going to be a lot smaller. Okay. But at least shows you how many people are watching for long periods of time. And then we are just consistent in reporting that. So I know week over week, are we up or down? A question that I've been asked a couple times by different churches is, do you use a multiplier? Meaning, because people are watching with other people. And historically we don't, but I will encourage you, if you want to do that, do it. A lot of churches use 1.6, where they times their attendance by 1.6. I don't know if it's two kids and the dog counts for half a person. I have no idea. But essentially a lot of churches use a multiplier 1.6. But if you're going to do that, consistently do it. And that's why I actually don't think the multiplier really, it doesn't matter, because you're just looking at a consistent trend. So it's going to be the same metric regardless. One option you could do if you want to multiply it and actually find out how many people are watching your community, send an email to your community asking for a survey. Do you watch with no people, one person, two people, and then use that number, that average, to multiply your attendance. Those are one thing. Mike, it sounds like you have something to add.
The only thing I wanted to speak into that is that that survey is going to have very different results right now as people are quarantined in their homes than it will, hopefully a couple months from now when this thing lifts. So just be thinking about that strategically as well.
Yeah, you're right. Tommy, what are some stuff you look week to week on attendance?
Pretty much everything Mike said. It's a baseline. It's the sessions in CHOP. I look at Facebook. I look at the average peak viewers in Facebook. I know that's kind of, there's a bunch of numbers in Facebook, but for me, I've just been looking at that. I feel more comfortable with that peak user, and I call it an average. But like Mike said, it's a baseline. It's okay. Are we going up? Are we going down? Is it, and then on YouTube, it's how many was watching, that I use that number, how many was watching, and I just baseline it. If I see my numbers skyrocket one weekend, then I look and say, okay, well, did something else happen? Or if I see them tank, what happened? But I keep that baseline. I don't change it every week, saying, oh, I got higher numbers on this report, I'll use this. And then I got another, I just use a baseline.
Yeah. So the peak viewers is a really interesting number. YouTube has a similar called concurrent watchers. And essentially what that tells you is, let's say in a given hour, you might have, let's say 500 people view your service, let's say, and the peak users or the concurrent essentially is a very similar number, but it will say at one moment you had 100 people on the stream at a given time. And that is a really good moment because again, people are watching this either live or playback. And that is a good moment. Like I had 100 people at this given time. So I want to kind of jump to looking at how you're caring for your people, any creative things online we're doing right now with online approach. So I think we've kind of talked about a large gathering there. Like how do you do a large gathering online? And so you can use YouTube, Facebook Live, you can use the church online platform. You can do it just in your living room. You could push it out using OBS or Wirecast or some of these other if you have a streaming provider, talk to them if there's some seamless ways. Now let's talk about how do you encourage engagement 24/7? And so at Saddleback, we're doing a couple of big things. One thing is we have a Facebook group, and Facebook groups are a lot better than Facebook pages for engagement. Specifically, Facebook pages are really nice for streaming and kind of updating things, but groups allow you to connect people. And what we're doing as a church is we're really encouraging our pastors to just do a Facebook Live or a video update once a day. And the idea is that as people kind of pull back, we want to step into it, and we want to have a visual presence as a church. And so I'm just going once a day. I go live into my Facebook group and I go, here's the update today. And I either give them an update of stuff our church is doing and how they can engage, or I might do a devotion. I was watching, there's a church up in, I think it was Seattle, Bridgepoint or Bridgetown. They launched a daily podcast, which I thought was kind of cool. It was just a quick daily podcast from their pastor doing different stuff. And I think creatively like that. Again, people don't have the natural 1 hour a week or so to come to your church. Now you got to give them options to fill the void, because you only could watch so much Netflix and Disney Plus right now. Okay. And so you have an opportunity to provide content in a moment for your members and your community to engage. And so a Facebook group is a really natural thing. Is there anything, Tommy, that you are doing that about just daily engagement so people can kind of connect?
We're, Facebook, we've got some different groups we do that with. One of the ways, like especially our volunteers, if I could speak in a little bit, just for our volunteer side connection, because as you know, if we're quarantined, our volunteers aren't coming in and serving, right? Yeah. I love what Mike said. I'm going to steal that, digital greeters. I'm going to go tell our greeters, hey, you're all going to be digital greeters now. No. But but they're not physically coming in and serving. So, we're looking for ways, how do we connect with them? How do we, and for us, as ministry leaders, we're reaching out to people every day, people in our teams, people that we have been in close contact with on a weekly basis, a monthly basis. We're challenging our team to reach out 5 people a day. Maybe it's a text message, a phone call. We use a platform called Rocket Chat as well. Now it's very similar to Slack. A lot of people know the name Slack. We use Rocket Chat because there's an integration with our church management system. So basically all of our volunteer teams have a private channel inside Rocket Chat. And what that allows for us is we can reach out in that it's a private chat, that they're just, hey, how's everybody doing today? Do you need prayer today? And so forth. It was so cool. Like for some of my volunteers last night, they started reaching out to each other inside the chat room saying, hey, how's everybody doing? Everybody okay? You need prayer? And others are responding to it. So that's one way we're doing it is connecting through tools like Rocket Chat. I shared with you guys earlier, one of the things we want to do is put on our website a way that, probably going to do this today or tomorrow, that our congregation can say, hey, I'd like to have a one-on-one Zoom call with a ministry leader. I just, somebody that can pray with me one-on-one, and we'll set that up as you guys are talking about WooFoo forms or some kind of form. They fill it out, and then we'll send them a link. The ministry leader that would be assigned to that one, just to talk to him for a few minutes via Zoom. And the thing I say about Zoom is like what you're seeing right here. You see our faces, and I think it means so much more when you can. If you can't see their face, at least hear their voice. But if you see their face, they're reading your body language, right? Like 100%. They're able to see. Oh, he doesn't look depressed. He doesn't look discouraged. I'm not saying we're not all fighting that, right? I'm not saying that, but I'm saying is we're going to lead through this, right? And our congregation has to see we're going to lead them through this. So that's a little bit of the ways that we're doing it, as well as we're launching a daily devotional
great.
Not daily, but 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, where we're going to email out, we're going to start with our big list, but then say, hey, if you want to keep getting these daily, opt in for this. Put a little link on our website that says opt in, give us your email address, and you'll get a 2-minute devotional from our pastor each day. We'll put it on social, Facebook, and so forth. Just a way to connect. Like what you said, Jay, it's to fill that void, because there's so much being spread right now. I mean, there's so many headlines you can read. I would much rather get a headline from my pastor. Hey, I want to encourage you. You know what? God is for you today. God didn't give you a spirit of fear, right? In something like that.
Yeah. So, what I love about what you just said there, and I think this is important for pastors and ministry leaders listening and watching this right now, is you need to train your volunteers and your staff, no matter who they are, to use Zoom, Skype, Google Hangouts right now. Yeah. Like you need to get away from you or the person trying to solve the problem and them just you need to give them tools so they can connect with their people. And so both one-on-one for counseling, for check-ins, or for smaller gatherings. And we're going to talk about that next. But I might suggest even like recording, use QuickTime on your computer or some kind of screen capture tool and record a quick, like, this is how you use Zoom. This is how you use Google yes. Hangouts. And send them because if you can train the people doing ministry on the front lines, your volunteers, your staff, whoever that is, once they understand how to care for people online, they could start caring for everybody. Because you, the pastor, as we know, we talk about this a lot, that church is not like a football game where you have 30,000 people in the stands and you got 40 or so people on the field. It's actually the reverse. It's supposed to be 30,000 on the field and the people are watching. And we need to empower people to use tools. And if we can't gather right now physically, they need to know how to gather people or meet with people digitally. So teach them how to use Zoom or Google Hangouts or whatever platform that is best for them. The other thing is, and you kind of hit this, Tommy, is this idea is you gotta you got to be using blast like email or text messaging. And what you're going to find out is you're going to find out right now who is not on your email list or who you don't have in your system. And so this is an opportunity for a good reason, not a bad reason, to grow your email list. So if you find out somebody in your community isn't on your email list, add them in, because email, to be honest, especially in the US, is still really important. It's people check their email daily, where Facebook and YouTube, they don't necessarily check that daily. They might check it more frequently now, but you can control, they can get an email right now. Or if you're in a place where texting is best, figure out a way to do blast text. There's a lot of tools out there. I think one that we've used in the past is A to Z texting is a service you can use, but just have conversations. My suggestion is, if you're at a church and you're having a lot of technical issues with how to execute this, find a small business owner that is doing this already. Because if you're a small business owner, you have to problem solve these things. And so find somebody in your church that is technical and empower them to help solve problems for you. Okay. I want to move on to, and then we're going to have a Q&A here, and I'm seeing good questions already. Some stuff that just jumped off the page, like before we answer this last question is the Church Online platform. Can you embed a video afterwards for playback? Yes, they have an offline mode where on the event, you can say, here, put this event up. So when a live event's not happening, they can watch the playback. And the other thing is audience retention. What metric is it? 30 minutes, 15 minutes? My church does 30 minutes. Some churches do 15 minutes. Some do 45. Again, they're kind of, once you get after 10 minutes, the metric's kind of the same, but pick whatever metric makes sense and be consistent. But one or other question. So I'm seeing a bunch of questions right now in the Q&A. I love it. We're going to answer this. One last question is, how do you do small gatherings online? Like, how do you do online groups and different things? I will say is that Saddleback does have a full course, like the hour and 20-minute course on how to do online groups. Essentially, online groups are very similar to like this type of event, like us, and I know you are those watching this, either playback or live, your video isn't on, but Mike, Tommy, and I are doing a Zoom call essentially right now, where you just have them figure out how to turn on their video and their mic. And there's some things that are different about an online group. You have to think about your lighting. You have to think about your audio. Like if I'm on an online group right now, I wouldn't turn on my dishwasher right now. That would be terrible. You guys would be really annoyed. My kids, I might make sure my kids have iPads so that they're taken care of for the next 20 minutes. And then you got to be comfortable with muting and unmuting, but teach your people how to use Zoom or how to use Skype, how to use Google Hangouts. Is there any tips or anything, Mike, that you guys are talking about as staff with how to do online groups effectively?
Yeah, it's funny that you're asking me this question. I know that we're doing this because this is a format, but every online group question I've ever asked has been directed towards Jay. So I just want to give that caveat before I say anything. But I do want to say that, we allow the user to choose their own platform for what's most effective for their life. So we're not going to try to push everybody to Zoom or everybody to Facebook. Different formats work for different types of groups. If you're leading a group and it's like, you're teaching inductive study and you're more of a teaching format, that can work on Facebook, because then people can just type in and you're the only person on video teaching. But then there's groups like Zoom where we want to get the most engagement as we possibly can from each person. And this is great to have multiple windows, video for everybody, like Tommy was saying, getting facial expressions, and you get a little bit deeper level of engagement when you're on Zoom or Google Hangouts. Every single one has their limitations, especially as you start going mass, getting it out there. So yes. You assume everyone has a Gmail. Not everybody has a Gmail. So if you don't have a Gmail, you're not using Google Hangouts unless you create one, which is easy to do, but that's a hurdle. And then I think it's 10 is the capacity as far as group size for Google Hangouts. And this is information that I got a while back, so it may have changed by then, but the free Zoom is 40 minutes maximum, and then you get booted. And then you have to, you can just reopen the link and join back in, but that's pretty annoying as well. So you're looking at 40-minute groups. So they all have their limitations. We try to equip our congregation with the tools to meet online and allow them to work through the situations on their own and provide whatever help we can.
Yeah, and I wouldn't try to force a platform. Yeah, I love that. I think we use the language internally, like be agnostic with how people meet, because Um, people at different ages in different countries and different stages of life love different things. So like my kids might love this thing and I might really love Zoom, but maybe I have friends that I use WhatsApp, WeChat, Facebook Messenger, email, phone. I mean, it's everything because I have friends all around the world. And so there's these different tools. And so the key is I would recommend one platform or two, like Zoom and Skype are great, and just go there and be familiar with there. And then let them, if they want to use their software from their work, great. Go to my PC or whatever it is, let them use whatever. But a key is you just want them to gather. And I think that's really important, and be familiar with that. I do want to recommend, so we're going to kind of move into a Q&A time here, and I'm seeing a lot of good questions here, but general next steps, as we're going, I want you to know this playback will be up afterwards. So if you missed it, we heard from some people that couldn't get in. I got a bunch of emails and texts from friends that I guess Zoom capped out at 100 and they got booted. And so the playback will be available afterwards. So please share that with anybody that this is helpful with. Next steps, check out the coronavirusandthechurch.com. Coronavirusandthechurch.com. There's a bunch of resources from the Billy Graham Institution, Wheaton College, the Wheaton team, and the Peace team and the PD team. So go to the Coronavirus and the church, and also make sure you follow PD Church on Instagram and Facebook. They're going to be updating their real-time different resources that come up. So let's move into a Q&A time. The first question that I saw was, what do you do with, and I think we'll just individually answer this, but how about copyright issues with Facebook and YouTube streaming? Tommy, have you guys ran into this? What do you do when you get flagged? I know there's a lot of churches around the country that got flagged probably this weekend from Facebook, like got real scared. Like, are they going to get slapped on the hand by Mark Zuckerberg or somebody from the Google team?
Our experience when we stream, it doesn't affect really our live stream. What it's affected is just the playback. Like if we leave the video file out there, that you can go back and watch inside on the Facebook page. It mutes it. It just mutes part of it, not the whole like message or service. It just mutes part of that. Like it said, hey, that song's copyrighted, so it mutes that that section of the service. We haven't gotten in any trouble.
Yeah. Essentially,
other than
essentially what happens is you get flagged, like on YouTube and Facebook. What they do is they demonetize you, which means you can't make money from that video, and they allow you to, they can run ads, and the person who has the rights can get that money. So typically you're not in a big issue, especially if you have a smaller presence. If you're a larger presence, you can buy music rights. Now what's key here, this is my encouragement. If you're performing a song live, normally they're very lenient on you, because if you're taking a song from your favorite worship band and you're performing it live, you're iterating on that rights. But I would recommend, do not just play Spotify music or Apple Music right on your stream, because they will flag you immediately. So if you're gonna perform, get some Google free copyright music, Creative Commons type of music. You can find different stuff for if you're gonna put something on a pre-roll or a post-roll on a service. But if you're doing something live, they tend to be more lenient, because it's going to be similar, but it's not the same thing. But don't use Spotify, Apple Music on a stream. But that's my recommendation. And you can, afterwards, you can fight it. You can kind of claim it. And typically, like what Tommy said on Facebook, what they do is they mute you. They'll mute a song for the playback. They do not mute you during the live stream typically. It's usually afterwards. And copyrights vary from country to country. So I found this out. We did a stream a couple of weeks ago and we got muted, and I thought the whole thing got taken down, but I realized it was only muted in Canada. And so it was like this random, because it was available everywhere, that happened. And so don't freak out right when you see it. Don't worry. Facebook and YouTube, typically they have a process now that they've done this. So don't worry about it. You'll have some chances to kind of figure it out. Okay, next question. Communion. Mike, what's the Rock doing with communion? How are you facilitating this? I'm curious. I got this question that popped up.
That's funny you asked, because we just had somebody on our board on a Zoom call yesterday, and we were talking about communion, and he was saying you know what, you can just have somebody have a grape if that's all they have, and then have a cracker and then try to do it at home. It's from the vine. And then we're like, well, what if they can't get a grape? You know, it's kind of hard to get a grape right now, you know? So it's just this interesting thing. And I think communion's a tough one to tackle, especially with so many churches, because there's so many different theological approaches to communion.
Yes.
But I do think the goal is for the church to be united as one. And I mean, I believe the heart behind communion is for us to remember the Lord's death. And what 1 Corinthians says, to proclaim the Lord's death till he comes. And there's this unifying force behind it. We're sharing a meal. And so we're actually going to be doing a communion service in one of our, living room gatherings that we're talking about. And we're just going to encourage people to be prepared. We're going to tell them ahead of time to have the elements ready and to partake at home with their family. I think it's difficult because of the lack of resources and groceries and whatnot. But if you put that aside and just say, how do you communicate communion online? We should be able to lead our families in communion. We should be able to lead our homes in communion. So if we can lead them virtually, I would just say make sure there's communication ahead of time that you're going to be doing communion so people can prepare the elements and be ready to do it with you.
Yeah, and of course, your denomination, your church, whatever your network, you guys have your own things to walk through. Typically, what we do at Saddleback is we communicate out something like, we want you to do it with others, groups of others. We don't want you to do it by yourself. And so what does that look like? We tend to have a preference of people doing it as a family. There are moments where an online group can get together on a Zoom call and take it together at a site. We want it to be synchronized, meaning it's all at the same time, either on a call or in a room. Is there anything else, Mike, that
I was just going to say, just also, I don't know the different denominations that are represented here. And I would just encourage you're going to have to translate this within your denominational context. And there's churches that there needs to be a priest or a bishop that do actually serve the communion as well. So if that can be translated online and you're comfortable with walking people through the communion elements and having them take it at home, walk through that. If not, you're going to have to figure out a different context. But from our non-denominational context, we just are encouraging people to join in and do it together in their home.
Yeah, and for sure, like I was talking, my grandparents are Catholic, and I remember talking they had a priest show up. My grandpa was very sick at the time, and I was asking them how do they do communion when they can't come to church, and they actually send priests out to different hospitals, and they have volunteers that go out and do things. So there's all sorts of creative ways, but you got to be very open to how you pull this off. There was another question, was how do you do next step forms? Tommy, what does a next step form look like both on your website and on social media? Do you just put a link there? What does that look like? And where are you hosting that form?
So our form's hosted through our website. Our website has the ability, we can create forms on it. But you've heard the term WooFoo form mentioned. There's a ton of if you need to create an online form, there's a lot of different places you can do that from. But it's just a form. It's first name, last name, email address, customize it however you want. For us, we have a spot that says, what next step are you making? Is it, I made a decision for Christ. I want to take growth track. That's our next steps program, our 4-week discipleship thing. I want to get water baptized, which some of that, it's funny you say that. I mean, in the midst of everything going on, I'm revisiting that right now. Some of my questions, how to reword those a little bit to, in light of global instead of not just the online space. But I take that link. So we have it on our church online platform. It's embedded right now, but there's a link on there that says next steps. And then I take that same link when we're in our service, at the end of the service, our pastor gives an altar call and he says, hey, Tommy's going to come back and share some next steps you can take right now. That's when I come on and say, hey, no matter how you're watching, Facebook Live, YouTube Live, if you're watching on our website, there's a link in the chat room, okay, or in the comment section. Click that link. And that basically, it's the same form. I'm not trying to create something special for Facebook or YouTube that I would do different. So it comes all in the same funnel. I don't want to be looking at 4 different forms trying to put all that data together.
Yeah.
You know, right now I just need one form and I can accomplish that across all the different mediums.
No, I like that. And again, just in the description on Facebook and YouTube, you could put links. So just,
Yeah.
and I would just make it very simple, like message note link, like next step or connection card link, and use Wufoo, use Google Forms, use whatever. There's a bunch of form systems out there that exist that are very, very simple to do. I was curious, there's a question in here. What are you guys are doing with streaming and online experience with youth? Tommy, is there anything you guys what does that look like right now?
Well, our youth director is actually recording a message today because we normally have youth group on Wednesday nights for us, and he's actually recording this afternoon. I'm not 100% sure you know, how that service is going to look. You know, it's not going to be their full blown service, but I think they're planning on like a worship song. He's going to teach, and then they'll turn that file around. And from right now, what we're planning to do is stream that on their Facebook page as a Facebook Live. We're not going to put it on our church online platform, like where our major stuff is. But they'll stream that on, because they're going to stream either the primary right now is Facebook Live, just because that's where they're at. And they may add, what's the other? Instagram Live. If we can pull off Instagram Live, because a lot of the young people in our youth group is on Instagram. But like you said earlier, Jay, it's meeting them where they're at and what tools that we have available that we can quickly get out. And for the youth, you know, we could quickly Facebook Live, you know, a message. It's, you know, that part's not, it's just like you said, from a cell phone if we had to. So. Yeah.
I think for sure, I would at bare minimum, if you have a high school program, a junior high program, a kids program, at least provide a way for them to upload content somewhere weekly. So it doesn't necessarily need to be live, because understand they're going to have, especially younger kids, they're not going to be able to necessarily wrangle their kids up and watch a live feed, but at least have a dedicated place where they can upload their weekly stuff. And I would encourage them to talk to them. And if it's pre-recorded, great. And they just put an intro and outro, okay. But I would definitely be thinking through that. I wanted to give a chance. We have a couple more questions here, but I think Mingo is on, and I want to give him a chance to speak, because I know he's been running around with his own online church experience. But Mingo, man, thanks for joining on. I know your church is trying to figure out a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, just for a profile comparison, we're a church that runs on average 700 folks to 800 folks on the weekend. Multi-generational church, so you've got a few challenges with folks who have never stepped into a streaming context, all the way to kids who sit in church and stream their own mini TikToks while messages are happening. So we've got the gamut happening that we're trying to navigate best practices. I tend to lean more pastorally with like a tech backdrop. So I've been telling people when it comes to, you know, from today going forward, content wise, your relationships with the people who you've always had matters. They want to hear your voice. They want to see your face. They want that transference of God's peace actively residing in you. When they see it, there is a calming factor there. And if they can't see your face, they want to hear the tone in your voice. So thinking of creative ways that you can allow people to hear your voice. My team's been utilizing even something as basic as the voice memos through text messages. A really simple way for you to tell your teams, reach your people through voice memos, because not everybody's going to pick up a phone call because it's not convenient for everybody. But you can be sending messages of encouragement, hope, direction, next steps, connection opportunities, prayers, all through the vehicle already installed on every single one of our phones, which is voice memos.
I love that. I love that. Just for a general, what platforms, just so people know, what platforms did you push a live experience to this past weekend?
So we pushed through Facebook Live, but we had an insurance policy pre-recorded on YouTube. So what we did was I recorded my sermon on Saturday, and the idea was one, not every pastor is like an A+ in front of a video camera without an audience. We all can admit that, right? So what I did was I divided my message into 3 parts, right? The 3 main points I wanted. I could digest that in my mind without constantly being not in addressing the camera, which would be addressing my audience. We refocused our set. So instead of a wide shot that would show the audience and all these people interacting, we tightened it up to a medium shot. And I delivered in 3 parts that I edited in post. I put it up on YouTube. And then 10 minutes before our service went live, I put that YouTube video as public so that if our live feed dropped out, I could send a correspondence quickly for people not to lose their spot over on YouTube.
I love that. I love that. Okay. So this is what I want to do. So I'm going to ask each of you to share like a final thought, and we're going to wrap this up, and there's going to be more resources up at the coronavirusandthechurch.com and the PD channels as well. So 2 quick questions I wanted to answer, because I saw this in the chat a couple different ways. One was around how do you do a live feed if it's pre-recorded, which is essentially this is where like a software like OBS or Wirecast allows you essentially output a feed, and what you do is you play the media and it plays it on the feed. Is that essentially what you guys did, Mingo? I was curious.
Hey, Jay, sorry to interrupt you both. Mingo, I'm gonna tag you in. I got a split. I'm happy tagging you in. There it is. Boom. Love you guys. I'll connect with you guys later.
Thanks, Mike.
See ya. Nice to meet you.
So just FYI, every online pastor is being pulled in a bunch of different directions right now, as like senior pastors are too.
They are the surgeons in this moment. So we utilize a technology called Sling Studio Pro. The technology costs $1,000. It's a streaming hub. And while the upfront cost seems reasonable depending upon what size church you've got, what kind of budget you've got access to, the advantages of using the Sling Studio Pro, which is hardware, is that it's got free software to download. You can navigate it via your iPad or a laptop, but you can connect up to as many iPhones as you want as your output sources. So if you've got a few staff members or volunteers who'd be willing to give their iPhone over for an hour of your recording, you can turn each of their iPhones into broadcast cameras. That's what we utilized. And then we uploaded videos, and we just clicked the video when it was time to go, and it presents as if it's live.
Which is great. And I've used it with you. It's a nice setup. The last question, and then Tommy, I'm gonna have you give a final thought here, is the last one was, what do you do with people who are having a hard time meeting because of generational things? And I would a couple of things. You definitely could spin up like a tech support ministry that can kind of help be thoughtful and like timely with people to how to solve issues. The other option is, and you would have to be very careful with the sanitary issues here, you could consider having somebody actually output your sermon on like a DVD and have a delivery ministry that, again, you're going to have to sanitize things. You're going to have to present it in a very safe way. But if people can't access it because of bandwidth issues, or they don't have good internet or whatever, you can have a ministry that just maybe prints out, maybe outputs about, you could do this from anybody who has the right setup. You could do 20 and they could just deliver it. Again, you want to sanitize everything and put it in a proper, I would recommend, not even like answering, not knocking on the door, just place it so that it's safe and secure. And make sure you review like government, guidelines so that you can properly sanitize everything. But that's one thing I saw in the chat. I'll go to Tommy, and then I'll go to you, Mingo. Tommy, any final thoughts to people about just streaming and online church and thinking about stuff?
The one thing that, at least in our mind, is what used to be is not, we don't feel like it's coming back. The culture has changed so much in the last 2 weeks that there's a new normal. Normal isn't what it used to be. And for us, we just, even for the folks that say, I have a hard time with technology, Now I get it. If you're living out in the country, you don't have access, you're older, that's one thing, but we have to embrace these tools. We have, there's no, and it's not, oh, well, you're just trying to push that on us. No, it's just, we have to embrace it because God's given us these tools. And in such a time as this, that, we want to be the church, right? We don't want to be in fear. We want to be the fearless church and use the tools, use them to the limits, get as creative as you possibly can. And don't let anything hold you back from, if there's a way to minister the gospel, to give hope, to give, to help somebody, do it.
Yeah. I love that. Mingo, any final thoughts for church leaders?
Yeah, Tommy, I appreciate your perspective on that. Well, the mission of our church is people helping people find and follow Jesus. So taking that and releasing the burden off of your own shoulders to be every message, every Devo, every worship set, every resource. There's so much great content that is already out there that all you have to do is respond, reflect, and really resource other people. Don't reinvent the wheel when there are so many great organizations that have already teed you up to do the communal and pastoral work. You don't have to become like a publishing house just because people can't come together anymore. You got to be smart, and you've got to be willing to decentralize and not be the only guy on the camera.
I love that. Okay, so again, more resources coming on the coronavirus and the church website. Follow the PD channels as well on Instagram and Facebook. I was asking, we're going to make sure that you have a link to that full how to do online small groups. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and the playback will be up very soon. Thanks, Tommy. Thanks, Mingo,
guys.
and Mike. See ya.